Hey, this is Chris with Permaculture FX. Welcome to this month's Patreon class and workshop. If you are joining us for this session, it has been produced because of the generous support of the Patreons in this community. So thank you so much for your continued support. Hopefully, as we continue over the months and over the years, this platform will continue to be a blessing for you and help you become more productive, more abundant, and honestly know how to utilize the things that are in your food forest. So I'm really excited to talk about the subject this month because it is prime salad season here in Central Florida and in many places in the United States. Now, regardless of what growing zone you're in, tropical spinaches can be grown, and they can be grown even indoors perennially. So whether you're in zones 3 through 8, taking cuttings in for the winter, or you're in zones 9 through 11, and they're growing continuously for you, these are an incredible resource to give us the nutrients that we need to go year round and to be eating out of our gardens year round. Now, the challenge for me personally, when I first dove into tropical spinaches, I had a lot of them. I still have a lot of them. A lot of varieties, a lot of colors, a lot of the flowers and the leaf shapes and whatever. How in the world do you use them? What do you do with them once you have them? So what I want to do today is go through some of my absolute favorites. So I have 11 of them and then some flowers that I'll mention as well. I've got a few samples here, so we'll do a little bit of show and tell. I'm short on a couple of them because when I was collecting, I had a rogue chicken come in and snatch a couple of them. I'm sure none of you can relate to rogue chickens. So I am short on a couple of them. But if you are following along by notes, if you're in the Patreon tier that gets the free PDFs, the PDF for these sessions will be posted on the second week. And this month, you'll also be getting a recipe guide with some of the recipes that I really like to use when consuming the tropical spinaches and that sort of thing. So I want to jump in. So again, there is going to be a PDF of the slides of the session that we're doing right now posted along with the recipe guide, and that will be the second week of the month. So without further ado, let's talk about food, because that is why we're here. We love to grow food. We love providing for our families, whether it's kids, chickens, or whatever. We love to provide food. We love to see abundance. These tropical spinaches, again, can really be grown nationwide. And I'll try and go through each one and tell you how you can propagate them, the best way to save seeds or save those cuttings. So the first one that I want to talk about is called chaya. Now, this particular variety of chaya can get to be as big as a dinner plate. You can literally use it as the kind of the topper on the plate, and then put rice and meat and that sort of thing on top of it. Now, the catch with chaya, though, is chaya does need to be cooked. And so I'll get into that in just a minute. This particular plant is hardy in zones 9 through 11, and it's a really good full sun, maybe part shade, but it's a very tall plant. So mine get to be 6, 8, 10, 12 feet tall by the end of the summer. And it comes in a lot of different varieties. However, every variety does need to be cooked. There is a chemical compound that is broken down by heat that makes it safe to consume. It's called hydrogen cyanide. Now, don't think cyanide, oh my God, we're gonna die, don't eat it. And part of knowing gardening is what part of the plant do you use. So think about tomatoes. If you eat the tomato leaves, you're gonna get sick. Same thing with eggplants or with peppers. You don't eat the leaves, you eat the fruit. There's a certain way that you eat the fruit. So this is the same way. So we just want to know how we eat it, how we prepare it. But it is very, very good for you. Very high in vitamin A, vitamin D, and high in minerals. So this is a really nice one. I love to cut this one up, saute it in a pan with some coconut oil, maybe add some Parmesan cheese, salt, pepper, garlic. Absolutely fantastic. Think about this one as collard greens. So it's a great collards replacement. But again, this is going to be 10, 12 feet tall possibly by the end of the summer. So when you do plant this, this is not the front of your garden. This is the back of your garden. Your other mid-story plants are going to be in front of it, but a beautiful, beautiful backdrop. The white flowers are excellent for pollination sources. Now, this one in particular is great for propagating by cuttings. I always use this method for cuttings, about 6 to 8 inches long, depending on the size of your hand. So you're going to cut them in those lengths, put them in a pot of dirt, full shade for a month, and you'll have a new plant that's growing pretty much right away. So this is a great one to do from cuttings. Now, I don't sell any of these plants, but I can recommend to you some places that have these. This particular variety I got from Josh Jameson at Cody Cove. Highly recommend, but you can get cuttings of chaya from many, many other places. So plant number 2 is another top story tree. This is called moringa. Now, in some countries, they call this the tree of life, because every part of moringa is edible and it's medicinal. It's extremely high in minerals, in protein, in amino acids. This is literally like growing a mineral block for cattle. In fact, there's a few studies that talk about the use of moringa and Mexican sunflower as a cattle forage replacement, or for fodder for goats or for cows or horses. And it's literally a replacement for much of their feed because it's so high in its nutrients and the bioavailability of those nutrients. So these leaves you can eat fresh, put them in a salad, sprinkle them on top. You can put them in smoothies. You can dehydrate this and use this as a powder, which is great in smoothies. Super easy to mix in. In fact, this last year, I used my moringa powder, put them in my blender. Every blender full, it only makes about 1 ounce of powder. It doesn't make very much powder. You have a lot of leaves to make the powder. But then I took that powder and I added it into a container of pink Himalayan sea salt because it doesn't have a lot of flavor. So when I use my salt, I'm also using moringa. And so you can use that on eggs and soups and stews, pretty much anything you would use salt on. So the leaves, edible, medicinal, raw, cooked, however you want to use them. The flowers are also edible. They do have a little bit of maybe a horseradishy flavor to them, like a nasturtium. In Ayurvedic medicine, this is also commonly used for men's issues, and we'll just leave it at that. But it's also really good on salads. And the flowers are real dainty, decent pollinators, but really not amazing for pollination sources. Now, the seed pods of moringa are also usable. I like to wait until they're dried, take the seeds out of the inside, take off the white paper, and then those can be sauteed or roasted in a pan. And they're similar to a hazelnut, I feel like, in flavor. So every part of this tree, edible, medicinal, absolutely a powerhouse, always does better in the ground. The benefit of moringa is it's bringing up all of those minerals. And if you're growing it in a pot, you're really not getting a lot of minerals. It does need to grow in the ground so that taproot can go way down into the soil and bring those minerals up into the leaves so they're available to you. Now, propagating moringa, this is a tricky one because I've been to a lot of nurseries. We're not even going to talk about the number of nurseries that I've been to. And I have seen nurseries that will propagate this by cuttings. Can it be done? Yes, absolutely. Moringa can be propagated by a cutting. However, it's only going to establish those sideways lateral roots if it's grown from a cutting. In order for it to have that taproot, a true taproot, it needs to be grown from seed. So when you purchase your first or second moringa trees, ask them, was this grown from seed or from a cutting? If it's grown from a cutting, no, thank you, and move on. But that should also let you know about the practices of the greenhouse, because if they're not propagating plants in the right way, homeboy, don't play that game. So moringa, that's number 2. Some of these ones are going to be tall. I mean, moringa, if you let moringa go, it's going to be 30 feet tall. I don't like my moringa that tall. I like all of these to stay a little bit shorter, easier harvesting. So I coppice or pollard my moringa trees multiple times a year to just harvest the leaves. There's other trees that I prefer as my shade trees, not a moringa, because moringa in the wintertime in most growing zones, it's bare naked in the winter. It's just sticks, so it doesn't look great anyway. So those are our 2 top story trees. Now, when we go down into the shrub layers, there's a lot of fun ones that can be grown more as a shrub height. So the first one that I want to talk about this is number 3, is Chief Kobo's South Sea Salad. I love the brightness of the stems. It gets these gorgeous yellow flowers that the picture is in the notes that you'll have on the PDF. And these leaves have these long fingers, and these can be 14, 16, 18 inches long. This one to me is not my favorite for fresh eating, but it's phenomenal in soups and stews. It has a natural viscous kind of a texture to it, not mucousy, but viscous. But that's really beneficial when you're making soups and stews because it thickens it up a little bit. So you're also getting those anthocyanins, the antioxidant power in those ribs. This one you could saute and mix it up that way, but there are some other greens that I prefer to use for my sauteed methods. Now this one's gonna be about 9 feet tall. So it's gonna be more tall, slender, and a shorter canopy around the side, a little bit skinnier, but this is very high in vitamin A, vitamin C, and it also has the edible flour. Now the flour doesn't have a lot of flavor. It's very, very bland, very mild, but it's kind of fun to put on a salad or on the side of a dinner plate, and your guests will just kind of go, what, I can eat that flour? So this is in the same family as okra, which yes, you can eat the flour from okra as well. So this is a really easy one to grow. Fantastic to propagate from cuttings. So this one, you do your little hang loose sign, cut the lengths of it, and then literally just stick it in the ground. What I often do with these is I'll take the leaves and I'll snip them off like this for dinner, and then I'll be left with that pink stem, and that's what I'm gonna use to go ahead and propagate. And so it's very, very easy. Don't propagate those in water. Again, straight into the soil, keep it moist and put it in the shade, and you will be good to go. So the next one I wanna talk about is roselle. I've not harvested one of those for sample right now because I'm just starting to get the flowers and the calyxes. Now, roselle or Jamaican sorrel, we're most familiar with the calyx, the used kind of flower pod that it produces, and that's what we get red zinger tea from. Really, really yummy cranberry flavor, but the leaves of it are also edible and very high in vitamin C, very high in antioxidants. Now, the leaves of roselle have kind of a lemony flavor. So this is my go-to for tacos, fish tacos, because it's the lettuce, but it also has that tartness like a fresh squeezed lime or a lemon on the top. So it really adds to that really nice fish taco flavor that you can add in there. So great antioxidant benefits, even in the leaves, because you get those nice red veins to them. And this is another one that can be pretty tall. So it's gonna be about 6 feet tall if you let it grow. If you don't stake it, roselle often sprawls and kind of falls on the ground, which is fine. I just kind of let it do its thing because at the end of the season, I want those calyxes. Now, this is another one that, can you grow it from a cutting? Yes. Do greenhouses do it? Yes. Should you? Probably not, because honestly, roselle is ridiculously easy to grow from seed. So just save your Jamaican sorrel, your roselle seeds at the end of the season, put them in a little Ziploc baggie after they're dried, and then replant them in the springtime. And if you're wondering what time of year to plant those, I always add that as a note in the free monthly gardening calendar at permaculturefx.com. So the next one, number 5, is called Auntie Lily's South Sea Salad. This is one that one of my dang chickens ate today. So I had these big, gorgeous leaves, and I walked over, and one of them is just pecking away at these leaves. So if you want to see a picture of Auntie Lily's South Sea Salad, sorry, friend, you're going to have to go online or use the image that's in the notes and take a look at those pictures. Now, Auntie Lily's is very similar in their growth habit to Chief Kobo's, the one that we just saw a picture of. The leaves will get to be dinner plate sized, and they come in all different variegated shades. You're going to get purples and burgundies and white and green and red, all on the same plant, all on the same leaf. They're absolutely stunning. This is another one that has a slightly viscous texture, so it's not one that I often put in salads unless I'm mixing it into some romaine or butter crunch lettuce or something. My favorite use of this one is as a wrapper. So it's great for gluten-free. One of my favorite recipes that will definitely be in the notes on week 2 of the month is I like to do egg salad sandwiches or tuna salad and then use this as the wrapper to wrap it up and then just eat it as this awesome, like, this awesome salad wrap, and it is absolutely phenomenal. I like it because kids always think that it's just fun because they're eating a leaf and it's hot pink and it's purple and it's red and it's cool. And so you can really get them to eat an egg salad or a tuna salad, and they're just going to devour this thing. It also makes a good replacement for grape leaves if you're doing dolmas, the rice and lamb or rice and beef wrappers that are soaked in olive oil. So it's a great replacement for those as well. Great antioxidant benefits because of the purples and the reds. Again, you have those anthocyanins, so it's really good for helping detoxify the body. And this is another one that is really easy to grow from cuttings. In fact, since my chicken ate this one, I've got 2 cuttings for sure on this one. And you can already see where these nodes have started to produce new growth. And that's what's going to start branching out on these cuttings. And within a month, you've already got a new plant that's ready to go to put in the ground at your place or to share with someone else when they come over. I do find for me that that's kind of a fun dynamic when people come over and I cook from the garden, which is often because I can send them home with the plant, the seeds or a flower or something from something that we ate at the table. And it just gives that ongoing gift of life that we get to give to people when they come to our farm or over to our home. So the next one on the list, number 6, is katuk, and I don't have a sample of that with me right now. So katuk is going to have little variegated leaves about that size here. Now the leaves taste similar to a pecan flavored lettuce. So these you can eat fresh. One of my absolute favorites for eating fresh in the summertime because it just holds its shape really well. It's not viscous, it has an amazing texture to it. I love sprinkling it in the salads. Now the berries and the flowers of katuk are also edible. So these you can put on the salads. The berries are not sweet like a cherry or a raspberry. They're very savory and they've got a crunch. So if you were literally to put the katuk berry in your mouth when it's ripe, it'll be like a whitish pink color. It's the flavor and texture of a pecan. I mean, it's really a strange thing. So consider like doing a salad that's like a pecan or a walnut salad with some cranberries on top, maybe a vinaigrette, some steak or something, and it's really a showstopper. Now, medicinally, katuk is wonderful antioxidant powers, anti-inflammatory. One of the best uses for katuk is it also increases the milk production, both in livestock and also in humans. So women or livestock that are feeding and supplying milk, this is fantastic for that calcium, the magnesium, the manganese, the boron. You're getting all of those rich nutrients. So katuk is a great one to plant in shaded areas. So if you're doing cattle on pasture, consider some of those shaded areas to add the katuk. Now katuk will die back to the ground every year in pretty much zones 8 through 9B. Now, zone 9B, 10 and 11, it's going to stay, green year round. But for me, it goes back all the way to the ground every year and then comes back no problem. You can grow it from seed. You can grow it from a cutting. So this one doesn't matter too much which way you want to propagate it. But again, very, very easy and is going to be a great shade lover. The height on this one can get to be pretty tall, but I never let mine get that tall. It's either getting fed to chickens or to goats or to horses or cows or on my salads or all of the above. But again, like with all of these, save those cuttings, use the leaves, and then stick the cuttings of it in a little pot of soil, keep it in the shade. Number 7 is cranberry hibiscus. So the cranberry hibiscus leaf looks almost like a Japanese maple leaf. This is one of my absolute favorites for using on salads because the leaves are bright burgundy and they have a really nice lemon cranberry flavor to them. So when I use them in teas, I'll put it in with the roselle. Sometimes I'll add it into lemonade, let it steep. I'll do it as a sun tea and then add a nice squeeze of lemon to the top, add some raw honey or some cane sugar. Sometimes I'll even just make the tea and stick a piece of sugar cane that I cut in half in it and just use the sugar cane to kind of stir it around. Now, cranberry hibiscus is the best if you've got kiddos or you have an immature sense of taste because you love fruity, awesome stuff. This is a great one to make Kool-Aid with. It's a great Kool-Aid lemonade replacement. It's got that lemon cranberry flavor to it. High in vitamin B, high in iron, high in calcium, high in antioxidants. Leaves are great fresh. They're decent dried, but they're not my favorite. But my favorite way to use this one, steak and blue cheese salad. If you're vegan, I'm really, really sorry. Steak and blue cheese salad with a raspberry vinaigrette on top. Y'all, that is what we're talking. If this is the only thing you listen to in this whole session, steak and blue cheese salad with your cranberry hibiscus, amen, let's stand. Like that is it right there. So, okay, so number 8 on our list is we have longevity spinach. Now, this one is probably the one that I eat the most of and I use the most of in the food forest. So as far as the growth habit, this is a sprawler and a spreader. So I like to do this one about 2 or 3 feet away from the trunk of the tree, and it literally will form this dense ground cover at the base of the tree. So it's a great thing for weed suppression. It will get little flowers on it, but they're kind of nondescript. But using it as a ground cover in the food forest is absolutely fantastic. Chickens will eat this, cows will eat it, goats will eat it. So it's very, very popular on the farm. Now, for me personally, I do eat a lot of eggs. I do eat a lot of soups. I eat a lot of stews. This is one of my favorite ones, and its cousin that I'll show you in just a minute. My favorite ones to do in scrambled eggs. So what I typically do is I'll grab a branch like this in the morning, and then I'll just collect the leaves off of it like this in my hand. And what I try and do is keep all of the stems together like this. So that way, when I set it down on the cutting board, I can cut off the end of those stems, you know, right here, and I'm left with the nice part of the leaves. And then I'll just kind of slice this up, sprinkle it in your scrambled eggs, and it is absolutely fantastic. So it's really good with some feta cheese on the scrambled eggs, maybe some avocado slices, Parmesan cheese if you want, salt, pepper, some little bits of moringa. So this one is one of my favorites for my breakfast in the morning. Really good in soups and stews as well. It's decent in salads, but I don't want to do a salad with just this because the leaves are a little bit thicker. So it doesn't really have a great salad only flavor palette to it. This one is probably one of the best for people that have issues with diabetes, heart problems, really good with LDL cholesterols, regulates the blood sugar. And so it's a really nice one just for overall health and well-being. Now, if you're adding something like this into your diet for the first time, always talk to your family care practitioner and make sure that there's not going to be any contraindications. So for people that have heart problems, if you're on like Coumadin or Warfarin or something like that, you want to be careful adding in these high density nutrient greens, especially in larger portions. So make sure that you double check with your family care physician first. But this one, longevity spinach, one of my absolute favorites and most useful in the food forest. Now, again, before I go on to its cousin, the Okinawa spinach, I always keep these guys, take them in lengths like this, and then I put that in a pot, and I've got another cutting that I'm ready to use later on. So the cousin of the longevity spinach is called Okinawan spinach. What I like about this one is it really has that nice deep purple underside. So again, anytime we see that purple, the red, the burgundies in our lettuces and spinaches, we're getting anthocyanins, we're getting antioxidants, we're getting high levels of vitamin B, vitamin A. So this is going to be an absolute powerhouse. Now, this one doesn't sprawl quite as much as the longevity spinach. It does tend to grow just slightly more upright. And I have better luck with this in a little bit shadier areas. So I'm talking, you could even go down to like 1 to 3 hours of direct sunlight a day. And this is going to do really well. In full sun areas, it'll still do fine, but you're not going to get the deeper purples like you would if you had a little bit of shade on this guy. But this one I'm going to use exactly the same way. I harvest the leaves just off the sides like this, so I expose the stem, keep the crunchier parts there toward the front so I can chop those off and then slice them, put them in my eggs and soups and stews and salads. And these again are great if you've got chickens, if you have ducks, if you have quail, if you have, you know, pretty much any animals and livestock are going to go to town on these guys. So the Okinawa spinach, and again, this is another good one for cholesterol, for blood sugar, and again, always check with your PCP first. Number 10 is going to be Suriname spinach or sisu, Suriname spinach, cousin of sisu. This one is a full sun guy. This one I have under a lot of avocado trees. It just seems to always do really well there. It does have little teeny edible flowers, but they kind of close up at about like 2 o'clock or so in the afternoon, and they're just kind of done. This one is a little bit more viscous, but it's very, very high in iron and calcium. It really helps protect the liver and regulate cholesterol levels. So it's not going to drop your cholesterol levels. It'll help bring those things back into the norm. The flowers are edible. The leaves are edible. The stalks and stems on these, if you're not using them for propagation, you can saute them and cook them like asparagus. And so it's a really nice one, just like you would cook asparagus, whether it's on the stove top or throw them in the oven, or even add in a few asparagus leaves and ease yourself into that different flavor palette. So this is a really good one. This has mild amounts of oxalic acid. So for those that have kidney issues, this is one to try first in moderation before, eating buckets and buckets and buckets of this. So it's a really nice, easy one. I have never had to replant this. It does die back to the ground in the winter, and then it literally comes back in the spring, kind of all over the place, because once the flowers are done, you get these nice little seed heads, and those will just drop seeds. And I often will find them in the yard, places where I didn't plant them, and I dig them up and I pot them up, and I either give them to friends or I move them around the food forest. I'll guerrilla plant them somewhere. Not that I would ever trespass in any way, shape, or form, but it's a great one that you can share and propagate really easily. Number 11 is sisu or Brazilian spinach. So this is the last one of the ones that I'll share with you. And this is the second one that my chicken got. I told you I had 2 that my chickens got a hold of today. So the Brazilian spinach has kind of curly leaves. And this one grows more dense and closely to the ground. So only about 12, maybe 18 inches tall at most. Does great in full shade, does decent in full sun, but not fantastic. This is my favorite for hamburgers because this one really holds its crunch, holds its shape, and it stands up against the heat. So this is not one you're going to be putting in soups or stews because it does hold a little bit of the crunch against the heat. But on a hamburger, the worst thing when you get into a hamburger and the lettuce is kind of melted over the top of it and it's just a sludgy, nasty, whatever, I always take the lettuce off. This doesn't do that. It just holds up really nice with that crunch. So again, this one's high vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, and calcium. Really nice as an understory because it's got that really pretty kind of a mounding habit. So I like to do wildflowers even around it because the green leaves with those nice curls, they almost look like curled elf ears or something. So it's just a really fun one to slide in on the edges of the food forest. Now, as you're looking at adding to your soups and your stews and your salads, don't stop with just these edible greens. Though these greens are going to make a great salad, you can add in some incredible pops of color with some of the flowers. So think along the lines of nasturtiums, if you like that nice peppery, radishy taste to them. All varieties of pansies and violas and violets have edible flowers. You can sprinkle those on top. There is zero flavor to them. They just look really, really pretty. Another of my favorites is calendula or pot marigold. Really good to sprinkle on a salad, but it's also excellent as a tea, and that tea is really good for skin health and helping with the mucous membranes in the body. Couple other flowers real quick. Snapdragons, every variety of snapdragon. Now you do want to be careful with snapdragons. If you're buying them at a big box store, you don't want to be consuming ones that have been grown purely in Miracle-Gro. So snapdragons are very easy to grow from seeds. So grow them one season if you got it from a box store, save those seeds, sprout your own the next year, and then start consuming those. But those go great on salad. And then again, any member of the okra family. Those flowers are edible. You can rip them right off your okra plant, put them in your mouth, or take them off and set them really nicely on the side of the plate or on the top of a salad right after you sprinkle the dressing on top. And it just adds this really nice, effect. To me, using the stuff out of the garden is not only satisfying to me personally because I'm finally utilizing the stuff that I bought and I'm learning how to get that into my body, into my home, into my day-to-day, routine, because we've all got those things that we just make a lot. You know, it's our go-to steak and potatoes and a certain kind of a salad. But if you can take these tropical greens and tropical spinaches and start just adding them in once a week into your diet, not only are you going to have the health benefits, but you're going to feel the joy and the pleasure of utilizing your food forest and bringing that into your home. And to me, there is no greater joy than inviting someone else into my home, sending them, home with a full belly, but also with cuttings to propagate, with a little bit of direction so they can go home and they can learn how to be abundant as well and provide for their families. Many of these, again, you can grow in containers, except for the first two that were on our list. A lot of these can be grown in containers, can be grown year round, and can be grown super easily from cuttings. So if you're in those colder climate zones, do not be afraid of trying these tropical spinaches. Now, if you want to try the seeds, I love the Etsy store, Seed the Stars. I've loved their seeds for a long time. They do have the seeds for many of these. Local nurseries may also have these. So if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out or leave a question in the comments below. And again, this video is possible because of the generous support of our Patreon. So thank you so much for taking time to learn, taking time to grow, and taking time to be abundant together. So have fun with these, and I will see you in the garden.